Hello, I am Professor Kino, and welcome to my Office of Cinematic Antiquity. Today we will be talking about... Director Ari Aster blew into the mainstream last year when he released his much-talked-about film Hereditary. Now, notice how I said much-talked-about film, and not hit film. That's because while many people heard about Hereditary and joined in the many conversations about it, it wasn't wholly loved. Divisive would be the best way to describe it. It appeared on people's best of the year lists and people's worst of the year lists, and it received a rough D+ cinema score. For those who aren't familiar with that metric, it measures general audience enjoyment upon leaving screenings of the analyzed film, and anything lower than a B isn't great, and lower than a C is dismal. But enough about what other people thought about the film. You can find those analytics yourself. How did I like the film? I didn't get to see it in theaters. It came out during my cross-country trip last year, but I saw it as soon as it came out on disc. I went in with some strange expectations. I had heard it described as being like The Witch and It Comes at Night, both slow burns, packed with atmosphere. But neither were particularly scary to me, and I went into Hereditary thinking I'd have a similar response. But that was not the case. I thought it was a powerful film, and a well-crafted film, and I definitely liked it, but I wouldn't say that I particularly enjoyed it. Its dark themes of loss, grief, and family felt too visceral to me, and its inclusion of really horrific imagery and plot developments disturbed me a little, because I was not expecting them at all. And the fact that it ended on a note that was equally happy and disturbing confused me emotionally, and it was a strange sensation that I didn't really love. However, after saying all of this, I think it's necessary to repeat that I did really like the movie, but I just didn't enjoy it in the most basic sense of the word. So when I saw that Aster was coming out with a new film, Midsummer, so soon after Hereditary, it piqued my interest. Thus, I went out to see it, this time with updated expectations. So what was my reaction to this latest Aster endeavor? Premise. After a heartbreaking tragic event, the college girl Danny decides to go with her boyfriend and his friends to Sweden in order to experience the traditional Midsummer celebration in the small Swedish hometown of one of their newfound friends, Pelle. However, as the days go on and the celebration continues, some truly strange things begin to happen, people begin to disappear, and Danny starts to suspect that something truly horrible might be underway. Writing. To say this film isn't disturbing like Hereditary would be a complete lie. However, I didn't find it as disturbing as Hereditary. Maybe it was because I went in more prepared for Midsummer than I did with Hereditary, but I think it came down more to the subject matter of each film. Where Hereditary dealt with family and loss, and there is a bit of that here in Midsommar, Midsommar is more about codependency, terrible relationships, and breaking free from them. There is a lot more to it than that, but, and I'm using the director's own words here, Midsommar is at its core an operatic breakup movie and a dark contemporary adult fairy tale. And I find that as interesting as it is strangely accurate. If I had to compare it to other films, it is a dash of Hereditary, a dash of Hostel, a dash of Suspiria 2018, and a whole lot of the original Wicker Man. You know, the one with Christopher Lee, not the,
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? What is that? What is that? What is it? Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Oh, my eyes! My eyes! Ah!
What is it? What's wrong, sister?
No, not that one. Anyway, can you sort of picture what this film is like based on that? It's probably a little tough, but that is honestly the most accurate way I can describe this film. However, back on track now, for most of the film's runtime, it is not as horrifying as I thought it would be. While this movie is very disturbing, the beginning particularly so, there's also, besides from the beginning, a beautiful element to it all. It's strange, and definitely a departure from the very drab and depressing aspects of Hereditary. Midsommar is just brighter visually and tonally, and it helps that most of the people who are the subject matter of the gruesome moments aren't all that nice. Some of them are downright jerks, so when bad things happen to them, it feels slightly more cathartic. Still horrifying, but not as much as when similar stuff happened to the more innocent people in Hereditary. And on top of this, all of the razzmatazz featured in Midsommar was at some point an actual ritualistic practice in Nordic/Viking culture. Yes, the film puts all of the most messed up ones into one creepy religious cult, but being a fan of anthropology myself, I found it a little easier to forgive the cult for their practicing of wild traditions. And the film actually invites this kind of discourse by making most of the main characters anthropology students, and by never making the cultists the clear-cut villains. While I was never on board with all their shenanigans, I did find myself equal parts horrified and curious by them. There were even a few moments when I was so torn between being disturbed by what I was seeing and being intrigued by it that I couldn't help but laugh out loud. And I wasn't alone in having that response. The director has actually said that it is a valid reaction to the film. In one instance near the end, one of the characters is tripping out of his mind, and he is forced to do some things, and at one point the camera cuts to just a close-up of his face, and he is so obviously lost and confused, pupils almost as big as his retinas, that it is kind of funny. And this strange balance of disturbing, intriguing, terrifying, and funny all at the same time remains a part of the film right up until the end, and then it leaves you feeling, just like with Hereditary, emotionally confused. And this is pretty unique for a film nowadays. I wouldn't say the experience is entertaining per se, but it is definitely fascinating, and I believe that anyone who thinks they can stomach the journey of Midsommar won't regret it. Acting. Florence Pugh is so phenomenal here as Dani that I am not joking, she deserves to be nominated for Best Actress. Right from the first frame up until the last, Pugh delivers the best performance that I have seen all year so far. There is this moment in the beginning, and this might sound a little odd without context, when she needs to let out an audible wail of grief, and she isn't even on screen when it happens, and it horrified me. It is so realistic, and it evokes such a feeling of anguish that it was heart-wrenching. As the film then continues, she is asked to bring so many other emotions to the table in wildly unique ways that my jaw dropped. She really deserves a Best Actress nomination. But if this film follows the route of Hereditary and Toni Collette's performance, Pugh probably won't even be acknowledged at the 2020 Academy Awards, and that is truly a shame. The rest of the cast is good, definitely, but none of them even come close to Pugh. Jack Reynor is solid as Dani's boyfriend Christian. He brings some redeemable qualities to the character that I thought were admirable, considering how much of a POS Christian kinda is. In other words, Reynor made Christian relatively human when the script called for him to be a definitive ass. So good on Reynor for taking the time and putting in the work to make that happen. William Jackson Harper delivered a bit of a weird performance for me. I only know Harper from The Good Place as Chidi Anagonye, and his character here, Josh, is pretty much Chidi without the awkward comedy and a tad more seriousness. It was a bit strange for me. It's not a bad performance in any way, but lackluster compared to Pugh, who he usually shared the screen with. Will Poulter, who has definitely come a long way since he portrayed Eustace Scrubb in the Chronicles of Narnia: The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, plays the comedic relief here. He is definitely funny and most of his jokes land, not in a hysterical way, but in a way that elevates the mood of the film. But just like with Harper, Poulter just isn't able to overcome, let alone match, the powerhouse that is Pugh. And finally, all the Swedish actors, including Vilhelm Blomgren, who plays Pelle, deserve applause for portraying some really whack Swedish people who perform some of the most messed up traditional Swedish rituals ever. It takes courage to delve into your own culture's dark side and then show off that portrayal to the world, a world that probably doesn't know much about your culture to begin with. And Blomgren needs to do even more. He is asked to not only showcase these effed up traditions, but then justify them through monologues afterward. So props to Blomgren and the plethora of other Swedish actors that give this film their all. They, along with Pugh of course, really make Midsommar what it is. Costumes, hair, and makeup. The juxtaposition of the American tourists in their comfortable, stylish, touristy clothes, shorts, cargo pants, wind pants, etc., and the Swedish folk in their traditional clothes is neat. It helps to create a fantasy versus reality aspect to this film, an aspect that is built up in many ways. And the latter are quite gorgeous. The plain white foundation of their wardrobes, with some dashes of faded golds, blues, reds, and greens, are used to make the copious amount of flowers pop. And the flowers add in so much color that make all of the outfits beautiful in the way that only traditional clothes can be. They are fantastic. Opposite this is the film's horrifically realistic design of corpses and of mangled people. Grotesque, a little too real. But I'm sure that's what Aster was going for, and they do provide an excellently jarring foil to the beauty of the Swedish cult's costumes, so the disturbing makeup is great as well. The costumes, hair, and makeup in Midsommar are a combination of the beautiful and the grotesque, and the film uses these extremes to help bring forth its desired themes. Set design. The sets in Midsommar are very unique for a horror film because they are very bright. They feature terrible things, but the sets themselves are beautiful. Gorgeous Nordic architecture, intricate and intriguing, although slightly disturbing wall art, and picturesque nature like gorgeous fields of colorful flowers. The sets themselves truly look like a paradise. That is until effed up stuff starts happening in them, of course. Choreography. Action-wise, there isn't much. One clubbing doesn't qualify as amazing action, but there are some dance sequences here. They're not stellar, but involve a lot of twirling, rotating, and moving as a group. They're not wild, but probably took a long time and a lot of preparation to get right. The results are cool, but not all that flashy. Still, the choreography is well done. Cinematography. Midsommar is damn gorgeous. First, the scenery. The mountains, fields, flowers, and everything in between are fantastic, like from a fairy tale. The way that they are framed and the color that radiates off them is stellar. They feel like they are from a fantasy. And this sensation is amplified tenfold by the film's ability to show off its drug trips. When the characters have ingested some type of natural narcotic, the whole film becomes very disorientating. The world bends and wobbles slightly, the colors become more pronounced, the sounds become more amplified. It's really uniquely done, and I thought it brilliant. And all of this is combined with quite a few long takes that are mesmerizingly beautiful, and some untraditional framing that I found fascinating. The cinematography here is very individual and very attractive. Even when there was some messed up stuff on screen, I found myself going, ooh, that's nice. Every shot in Midsommar is destined to be analyzed for years to come. Editing. It is very difficult to talk about editing, and in a lot of my reviews, I tend to say that when there is good editing in a film, you never really notice it, and when there is poor editing, you do. But there are always exceptions to the rule, and Midsommar is one of them. The editing is like that of an old classic. You can feel the editing, but it always enhances the film. The first cut in the film and the next few that follow it line up perfectly with various musical notes and sound effects that I was immediately like, wow. And Midsommar maintains this quality throughout the entire film. From scene transitions, one memorable one involving Danny opening the door to the bathroom of an apartment and then stepping into the bathroom of an airplane, to making the drug trips feel trippy for us, the audience, like we are going through each one with the characters themselves by having the sound distort when focusing on drug characters and then editing away from them to the real sound at the perfect moment, to cutting away from, or sometimes not, the horrific moments to make each one as impactful as possible. This film is a masterclass of editing in that the edits are usually clear but never distracting. CGI. There isn't all that much noticeable CGI. I believe most of the stuff in the film was done practically. However, there are a few things that needed to be done with digital effects, and the result is good. Obviously, some of the more gruesome things had to be done digitally, but most noticeably, there are some subtle effects put into the film when the characters are on drugs. Pulsating flowers, hands and feet becoming one with the grass and dirt, seeing nature's life force flowing among the sky, the flora, and the fauna. The CGI is implemented and used really well here. Music. The music is chilling. It combines traditional Nordic music with modern horror music's ability to make the creep factor crank up to an 11, and the result is a creep factor that is cranked up to a 12. There are moments when the music alone gave me goosebumps and scared me, but there was also an element of beauty to it all that is perfect. Listening to it is both mesmerizing and horrifying. You want to turn it off, but it is too intriguing. It's so atmospheric and so fitting that it floored me. It's one of the best horror soundtracks, and maybe even just soundtracks of the year. Direction. While Ari Aster is on the extreme side as a director, I can't deny his brilliance. He is a true master filmmaker. His films are original, smart, and wholly artistic. He has a clear voice and style, and I personally think that Midsommar is an astonishing film. Aster is an auteur to look out for, definitely. My enjoyment. I think Midsommar is a great film, an artistic masterpiece. But just like with Hereditary, it is difficult for me to say that I enjoyed my time with it. Although I do see myself rewatching this one sooner than I do Hereditary. I can't help but feel drawn to Midsommar. I keep thinking about it, and I will call it one of the best films of 2019 so far. So I liked my time with this film, I really did, but I didn't have fun with it. And that's the best way I can describe my thoughts on this trip of a movie. Recommendations. I can already tell that this film will be divisive. You need to be a specific type of person to enjoy it. And in order to tell if you are one of these people, you need to ask yourself some questions. Did you like Hereditary? Yes? Then you should enjoy Midsommar. Can you appreciate artsy films? Yes? Then you might have a good time here. Are you squeamish? No? Then you should be fine with this film. However, even if you think you might not be squeamish, Midsommar really does test your limit. And if you do decide to watch the film and need to leave the theater during your screening, that's okay, no one would blame you. because I don't think there will be many people that will enjoy this film, but there might be plenty of you out there that, like me, are intrigued by and like Midsommar in spite of this. And if all of this sounds like something you'd be fine with, then go for it. Midsommar is a unique experience that doesn't appear in the theater all that much. Thanks for watching, I hope you liked it. If you did, leave a like. If you want to add anything, feel free to comment. If you want to see more, please subscribe. I am Professor Kino, and I look forward to our next discussion.